This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
What a week it has been, in Lagos and the whole of Nigeria. But well, we survived it. Are we not here? Yes, we're here. It's another time for another great episode of The Discourse with Dr. Ken. And today, by the way, my guest is a very special guest today. He doesn't need too much introduction. Today's topic is Nigeria, the culture of scarcity. And my guest today does not need too much introduction. Like I said, he is no other than Dele Farotimi. What I normally do is, give a short profile of my guest, but Dele is not a man given to titles and too much accolade. He is what he is. If you are looking for the word simplicity, then once you see or hear Dele Farotimi, then you've got the real meaning of that word. But having said that, I've tried to summarize by way of tradition the profile of Dele Farotimi, which I'll just take a paragraph and that would just be adequate. Dele Farotimi is a lawyer, a seasoned political activist and author. He's a human rights advocate. He's passionate about the battle of new Nigeria and better Nigeria. Dele is a member of the Citizens Rally Against Operation Ramimba, and that is basically the summary I was able to do, and he doesn't need too much of that. I had to put this on air, all through the week, and the feedback has been incredible because people want to understand. We want to link Nigeria, want to discuss Nigeria. What is this thing that has become culture of scarcity?
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Dele, how are you today? It's quite sunny, isn't it?
Our sunshine is not scarce, so we can thank God for that. Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining. I sent this invitation to you quite late, and I'm very happy. And it's a pleasant experience that you were able to accommodate our request. So thank you and welcome to The Discourse.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Nigeria and the culture of scarcity. Let me start like this, Dele. You see, how important, because it is a difficult situation we found ourselves, how important and how tough is it to provide leadership in difficult and troubling times like we have today in Nigeria?
I would imagine that it is in the times of crisis, such as the one that Nigeria has been emerged in for at least about 2 or 3 decades now, that leadership or true leadership ought to emerge. I would imagine that it is when things appear to be at its direst that society should throw up its true leaders so that they might, by the strength of their vision, because that is what every leadership should be based on, lead the people out of the current mess. But unfortunately, as desirable as that might be, Nigeria as a place appears to have perfected the art of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And even though we've been in demonstrable mess for almost my own entire lifetime, and I'm 56 now, the unfortunate thing is that we only appear to be becoming more and more immersed in the mess rather than to be on our way out of it. So it's desirable, quite all right, but we've not managed to achieve it, unfortunately.
I like to use the word predicament, and this is another opportunity to throw in that word. It's quite a predicament. So, because look at this scenario and the signs, Dele. Atmosphere of fear, existential threat due to extreme poverty, talent loss and mobility, revenue pressure for businesses. I'm told that the true leadership includes the ability to distinguish between real and apparent danger. Do you think leadership at all levels in Nigeria see this danger?
We don't have leadership at any level in Nigeria currently, neither in the public space, and I dare say not even in the private sector.
Really?
Because a private sector that believes itself insulated from the insanity that has overtaken our public space is exceedingly myopic. How can the legal profession, for instance, be good if the country itself is not good? How can the manufacturing sector be of any use if the public sector is consistently useless? Of exactly what use are any of the professions, and what are they professing when the society in which they are existing is not one that is led by anything visionary? So I'm not really sure that you can speak in terms of the word leadership within the context of the Nigerian state. Let us be clear. Leadership is about visioning.
Okay.
A leader sees a place that is non-existent, but that exists in his imagination, and he seeks to lead the people in that direction. That is what leadership is about. Exactly what about Nigeria can be said to have been led in a long time? We've just been drifting from one crisis of existence to the other. Nothing can be said to have happened that is visionary, except, of course, if you are counting stealing and retrogression. That is the suggestive reality of our existence as a people. So I'm sorry, the word leadership does not apply in our context. That is the unfortunate reality with which we are beset.
Yeah, but I get you, and because whether we like it or not, we have some kind of structure in place that presupposes that we have leadership at subnational level, at federal government level. We have a cabinet, so and you know what, we are paying for this, either positively or negatively. So yes, anyway, we'll talk about hope and where all this may just lead, because the world we're not isolated and completely removed from the rest of the world. So we have a resemblance of that, but maybe you are not satisfied with the quality of and caliber we have, isn't it? I'm talking about the last 20 years or thereabout.
I believe that the problem, the difference in our perception is born from one disability that I carry, and that is the fact that I like, or I'm in love or obsessed with linguistic exactitude.
Okay.
When words are used in my space, it is my own belief that the word should mean what the native users of the word intended for it to mean.
Yeah.
We have rulers.
Okay.
Because there is a structure of governance. But that structure of governance is not headlined by leaders. It is headlined by people that might at best be called rulers. Rulers are preoccupied with retention of power, retaining themselves in office. They are not preoccupied with the public good. Those who are preoccupied with the public good might be called leaders.
Okay.
But those who are existential in their outlook and completely fixated on maintenance of their hold on power cannot be correctly referred to as leaders. Even using the word rulers in that context is being extremely charitable. The proper word should be ruiners, because if you do not lead the people in a positive direction, but continually lead them in a manner that divides the country, makes their lives unbearable, and is essentially focused on your own avarice and acquisition of unconscionable wealth, you cannot be objectively labeled a leader. There is a positive spin on the word leader or leadership, for that matter. Nigeria has not been led. Nigerians have not been led. If we have been led, we will not be talking about the scarcity of petrol, the scarcity of electricity, the scarcity of wealth, the scarcity of security. The only thing that is prevalent in our space as victims of Nigeria are the scarcities that we grapple with on a day-to-day basis. The only people who can be said to be having any form of positive, if you want to use the word in a restrained manner, are the rulers of Nigeria. The people themselves are constantly groaning in pain. They are constantly managing scarcities. They are constantly being dehumanized. So you cannot really, in good conscience, speak objectively to leadership in a space that is as degraded as ours have become over the years, progressively degraded. Education is worse today than it was in my youth. The healthcare delivery system is worse today than it was in my youth. The road infrastructures have become more degraded than they were in my youth. Every aspect of our public and private lives, even morality, have become more and more progressively degraded. So how do you then speak objectively to leadership in a space where there is nothing suggestive of an advancement into the future, but rather a race into antiquity? We're on the road to Mogadishu.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
You see, the more you speak, the more depressing it becomes. Not that I don't know. I mean, I'm old enough to have experienced all of this, but it is what it is. But I think I There's still some hope there. I remember that
Amen to that.
I still remain the optimist that I am. But I get what you are saying because, and it comes to teachability. And look at what the Bible is saying, even in Proverbs 10:17. It says that when leadership loses teachability, you know what happens. Clearly there is danger there. So when leadership is out of touch with God and His people, they lose teachability. Are you saying that over the decade we have set of people who are gradually losing teachability?
Well, first thing first, if you really look into a mirror and you find what you really don't like in that mirror, you must first of all concede the fact that the mirror hasn't told you any lie.
Yeah.
It's merely shown you what is there.
It's a reflection of what you see.
It's a reflection. I'm a Nigerian who does not have a second address other than Nigeria. And it is my hope that at some point we'll be able to have a turnaround and stop traveling down this ruinous path we appear to have been locked into. I want to hope. I want to be positive in my outlook about my country. And it is my belief that we can turn it around that has held me hostage to this country. Is the only reason why I have not fled Nigeria like a whole lot of others have fled over the years. So, yes, the energy of our youth, the global nature of their citizenship, the fact that they are not bound into the space called Nigeria because they have access to the outside world as a function of the availability of the internet, it fills me with hope that because they can see this future, they might be able to evolve new systems by which they might free themselves. But there is nothing, absolutely nothing to suggest to me that the current rulers of Nigeria or the current governance systems that Nigeria is saddled with is capable or they are capable of delivering anything positive in the future without radical change happening to both to the leadership structure and to the governance systems. That's my own conclusion as far as Nigeria is concerned. Yes, I wish our rulers were teachable. But when you consider the fact that the bulk of those who are ruining Nigeria today have been in government in one form or the other since 1999 and before, it then suggests to you that these are not people who are interested in learning anything. They are settled in their ways. They are happy with the way they are running things. You and I can bellyache all we want and we can desire a better Nigeria for as long as we care. Those who are in effective control of Nigeria actually prefers Nigeria to be the way it is. So Nigeria is not the way it is right now by accident. It is the way it is right now because it benefits some people and it is structured to be the way it is. So, however much we might wish that they were teachable, the evidence of our senses should tell us very clearly that they are not interested in learning anything. They are settled in their ways and they are happy with what they are doing. We are the ones who need to come to the knowledge of the fact that no matter how much we wish that they would change, they are not about to change. This is what they want.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you on that. I'm just happy that you've given a bit of flicker and room for some modicum of hope, even if it is 1%. But the topic of today is Nigeria and the culture of scarcity. And let me explain what I meant by that. We have scarcity of thinkers. I'm not too sure we have too many deep thinkers anymore. Scarcity of proper leaders, and I'm talking about public, private sector that you've alluded to. In fact, even our religious organizations, but their fingers being pointed to leadership around those areas. Scarcity of basic infrastructure, scarcity of basic essentials of life, petrol, NGO, gas, electricity, housing, medicine, security, value for life, and even scarcity today of the truth. Do you agree with me? And I know you've touched on that, but this is what I meant, when I said Nigeria, and we're getting used to it. That is unbelievable.
You have merely outlined the multiple layers of scarcities that Nigeria and Nigerians are faced with. There is nothing to disagree with right there. Because in the first place, if we had a surfeit of thinkers in our country, They will be able to look at our objective realities and call it as it is, and then take positive steps to change what they have critiqued. But the unfortunate thing is that the scarcity mentality begins with the mind. And when the mind has embraced scarcity, what you find is a focus on existential considerations. Instead of men to think beyond their lifetimes, which will then mean that they are being visionary in their thoughts, what you find is a fixation on what they will eat, what they will drink, what they will wear, what they will write, where they will live, their carnality, because they are not looking at tomorrow. They are always looking at the here and now. So in our public life, we do not have rulers or leaders who are thinking beyond the moment. In a country where some people are going to bed hungry, where we don't have healthcare facilities, where the educational system has already collapsed, at least in the thinking of objective-minded, future-looking people, it is obvious that we should have declared emergencies in all aspects of our national life. The rulers are fixed on creature comforts. In the same country that cannot afford education, we are spending almost 100 billion subsidizing Hajj. That should tell you the kind of mentality governing the choices of those who govern our country. So when you speak in terms of scarcity of thinkers in our public space, that is more than obvious. In our educational system, that's more than obvious. I would imagine that if we had thinkers running our educational system, alarm bells should be jangling all over the place, because what we have managed to do over the years is to produce educated morons. I'm sorry to use that language, but people graduate from universities and polytechnics and they can't think for themselves. They are incapable of thinking, because if they could, by now, our streets should not be looking as normal as they are looking. People should be anointing their heads with ashes and crying at what has befallen them as a collective. But that is not what we see. We still carry on with our parties. We still carry on like everything is hunky-dory. The future is being lost, but we are busy dancing away. We've become a nation of gamblers. If you are watching any TV station during any sport program, you will be seeing at least within an hour period, you see at least 20 gambling adverts at any time of the day. Who is talking about that? That is suggestive of what we have become. We are fixed in the moment. Thinking has been thrown out of the window. So when you talk about scarcity of thinkers, that we actually have an epidemic of idiots.
Yeah. So
If the truth be told.
Yeah, that's the area that really bothers me, because everything for me begins with thinking. At least have capacity and ability to think first before the other capacity to deepen the thinking.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Now, Dele, in the light of this difficult situation, and it's quite difficult the way you've painted it, not that we didn't know, but it's proper that we got somebody who could, properly articulate it and put it there, just so that if you are pretending or you are deceiving yourself, you know what the reality in your hands are. So how sane are Nigerians? Because, I mean, you cannot be in the midst of all this. So how sane are Nigerians still in this situation? Have we built a culture that harbors scarcity? Has it become normal that things must be scarce?
Doc, you're a very funny man. How sane are Nigerians? The question probably should be, can Nigerians afford to be sane?
Okay.
We can't afford to be sane in an insane environment. Let me show you something. If you've traveled outside Nigeria, you'll find that in most Western airports, and I'm sure they would have started doing the same thing to us in the Middle East, there is always a section of the airport where Nigerians are enjoined to go and weigh their luggages before they approach the airport, the airline counter. The scarcity mentality of Nigerians means that everywhere we travel with excess luggage, because we don't expect to have access to those things. So even in our mentality, scarcity has been ingrained into us. We travel all over the world. When we are traveling, we have excess luggage. When we are coming back, we have excess luggage. We are the ones constantly harassed by airline attendants about our excess luggages. Those excess luggages, some people will think that is a mark of the fact that they have wealth to shop. But the reality is that it is actually an indicator of the scarcity mentality that has become ingrained in our consciousness.
Yeah, it's a form of insanity, actually.
Yes, now, a person is traveling, when you open their luggage and you see what they have loaded themselves with, you begin to ask yourself, are they traveling to war zones where nothing is available? They are buying soap, body cream, hair cream.
Tissue paper in some cases.
Shoes,
so wipes, face wipes.
All kinds of scarcities have befallen the Nigerian, and the most tragic of them is the scarcity of the consciousness of what we have become. The other part of the world, they see us for what we are. That's why they have those sections for us. So when you ask the question, we can't be sane in an insane environment. Your sanity is even likely to get you killed in the environment and country that we have built. We've built a place where nothing sensible happens. So when you now tell yourself you are sane and you are living in an insane environment, people are driving down one-way road on a daily basis. You'll find policemen who are meant to enforce the law blaring sirens for one big man driving down a one-way road. How can that be a sane environment? There is absolutely very little about us that can be said to be sane. And the question is, can we really afford to be sane if we have built an insane society? So I'm sorry, painful as it is, even I will gladly tell you that I'm not sane. My sanity will be a dangerous proposition. Why should I? If I am sane, I'm dead. I cannot afford to be sane in this environment. I think it was Chief Ganifawa Emi of blessed memory who said that it is a crime to be law-abiding in a lawless country.
So,
I would invite... Sorry?
Yeah, I get you, and that's why I asked that question. Because how do you achieve such way balancing and alignment and remain sane in all that you've outlined? But there's something I meant to ask you all week, Dele. And I'm quoting you, one of your quotes. You said, "My grave matters more to me than my bed. I can always lay my bed or have it laid for me. I have no say as to my grave, and it matters more to me than my bed." What exactly do you mean? Because this is Dele Farotimi's quote.
Well, it's not just a quote. It's one of my anchors.
Okay.
Whilst I'm alive, everything I do, my choices, the words I speak, the choices I make, that is me making my grave. Because when I am gone, when I have become as dust, the only thing that will be said of me, both by my enemies and by my friends, what history will record of me are the things I did with my life, the choices I made. Did I choose the easy path, or did I stand up for the truth? Those are the things that would ultimately be said of me when I am gone. And I have no control over what anybody will say about me when I am gone.
Okay.
I have no matter how much power I might amass, no matter who I might be, once I'm dead, I'm dead. What will be said of me are my deeds and misdeeds. However, my bed, I can ask my daughter or my son or one of my underlings and hirelings to make my bed for me. If I don't even like the bed, I might ask them to take it. If I can afford a new one, I buy a new one.
Yeah.
That is up to me. Those are the choices. That's the allegory right there. Those are the choices that are within my control as a living being. But once I'm gone, and I think a refusal to focus on our graves have resulted in the society that we have built.
Yes,
if we will focus on our graves in the understanding that we are merely creatures in time.
Exactly.
Who will live for a season and then at some point will be gone. We'll probably make better choices than we have made as a collective.
Yes.
So that quote is actually one of my own anchor positions, and it is that I must be careful at all times to make sure that there is an alignment between my conscience and my choices.
Fantastic.
That's
So,
what that.
yes, I was deliberate when I pulled up that quote because I knew that in explaining it, a lot of people will understand that if you had recourse to the end, then that will probably condition how you behave while you have the privilege and opportunity to stay alive. So, let me come to communication and messaging. How important is communication and messaging, especially in troubled times? Because I see that there is a lot of struggle in this space. One thing is to be poor, another thing is not to have the resources, another thing is the even ability to lead, if you may not have. But if you have ability to communicate and communicate properly, you're almost halfway there. Do you agree with me? I don't see too much ability in this space.
I think, and I'm sorry that sometimes you ask simple questions and I appear to dive into deep waters.
Yes, Dele, yes, I keep them that way because I'm confident. I know why I ask those questions because I will bring out the best in you and to the benefit of teaming audience that are listening. I want them to understand, and I'm very sure you will help me elucidate on that.
I think that there are times when we project, every time you are interpreting either what you hear or what the other person is doing, you can only do so within the context of your own intelligence, and then your understanding of their intentions.
Yes.
Most of the time, we make the error of projecting and judging our rulers by our own understanding and our own intentions.
Mm-hmm.
I actually believe very strongly that Nigerian rulers have been extremely successful in communicating what they want. What they have done is that they have deliberately miseducated the people to the point where it is probably more dangerous to attend the Nigerian educational system and graduate because it doesn't teach people to think. The educational system is not designed to educate the mind. It is designed to produce those who will do as they are told. So when those who rule Nigeria talk to the people they are ruling, they are very effective in communicating what they desire as the outcome. That is why you find that it is almost impossible to get the people to agree on common purposes because they are not seeing things the way people who should be able to dissect words see things. So if what you are looking to achieve is what Nigeria has become, you can only applaud the rulers of Nigeria because they have successfully communicated the putrefaction that you see in our public space because the people are generally comfortable with it. Some years ago, there is no way Nigeria will be the way it is right now, living with the scarcities that it is living with right now, and the people would not have found either reactions or responses. But today, you find a general placid attitude and acceptance of what should ordinarily outrage the citizenship, or let me just say the populace. The victims are actually comfortable with what they tell them. Oh, we are being sabotaged. That's why that is happening like that. And people are not asking questions. So I'm not too sure that we can't blame our situation on poor communication. I think it is more a situation where the people have been conditioned to accept even the most useless of directions or misdirection as the case might be. Because if the people retain the capacity to know what is good for them, there should at least be some level of outrage in attendance at the failure that is staring Nigeria in the face, but that is far from the case.
So, thank you for clarifying that. I have I just take two questions because there are a lot of questions out here. But one of them is saying that he is agreeing completely with everything you've said. But or in fact, is a she. She's saying that in a country where it looks like the private sector, some sectors or some sections of the private sector is flourishing, that how can you say that we have scarcity of competence and leadership in the private sector when they are flourishing as against the public sector? What do you have to say?
The question is this, and if this question had not been asked, I probably would have left this proverb until the end of the program, as you have told me.
Yeah.
There is a Yoruba proverb. It says, "Olówó kan láàrin olòṣì mẹ́fà, olòṣì ni gbogbo wọn." One rich man in the company of 6 impoverished souls is as poor as his impoverished companion. There is nothing about Nigeria that is suggestive of a flourishing private sector. The poverty level in Nigeria is scary. So when we speak in terms of a flourishing private sector, people can speak in terms of their own individual enrichment. But the society itself is progressively impoverished.
Okay.
Individuals have become richer at the expense of the commonwealth. So, yes, you would have people who have made good in a society that has become worse, but they are just as poor as their neighbors. The system has assured that even those who are impoverishing us, putting their hands in our common purse and stealing from us, they are just as poor as the victims of their misrule. So I'm sorry, I don't believe that the tokenist success of certain parts of the private sector is in any way indicative of anything to offer hope. Perhaps as kindlings that might spark a fire, yes, but as beacons of hope, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It bears no such beacon. They are merely kindlings that might be used to spark fires.
Okay. I take another question, and this one is a bit controversial, but I still have to take it. He says, I hope you've been following some figure in the religious subsector that is claiming that it could bring the value of the rate of the dollar down. So he's asking, is this just a skit, or is it humor, or is it part of what mechanism to help us endure this as part of the scarcity we have all over the place?
You know, when I was a younger person, I used to read a lot. And I remember reading from survivors of the Nazi concentration camps. And one of the things that struck me was that there was a dark sense of humor, gallows humor, even amidst survivors of the Nazi camps.
Okay.
So I think the best way to look at the Nigerian religious establishment, especially the more extreme jokers and clowns that have come to populate, especially Pentecostal Christianity, is that they are comic reliefs. We must have something to laugh about in our situation. So a person can tell you is that the only thing that differentiates the Abido Shaker exponent from the rest is that he probably doesn't speak as good grammar. He doesn't speak good grammar like the others ones who can speak Americanese.
Yeah, some say it's his own unique selling proposition.
Yeah, well, exactly. So he has his own audience as well. The ones speaking Pone and Americanese also have their own audience.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, all they are selling are just comic reliefs. Because everyone helps only those who help themselves. You can speak in tongues from now till kingdom come. If you don't do the work, prosperity will not come your way. As long as we remain a consumptive nature, producing nothing and consuming everything to the point where even our toothpicks and everything about us either comes from China, it's coming from somewhere outside of Nigeria. And our only product, petrol or crude oil, are being daily stolen, quote and unquote, by people in power in conjunction with those who should be guarding these national assets. How can we expect that dollar will come down? I'm not a prophet of doom, but for as long as we are consuming more than we are producing,
that's basic economics.
Our tragedy is already foretold.
Yes.
So Abido Shaker and Ganduje and Dusa can give us his own comic relief. But just as he's giving his own comic relief, there are others who are speaking better English, less entertaining, who are also busy offering comic relief.
Okay.
Is it that don't let me?
Okay. So we'll leave it at that. It's just one of the questions I had to pick because they are merits. I take one last one before I go back to my trend of questions. This woman, okay, this time is a guy. He's saying, and by the way, it's from the UK. He's saying that hearing you, Dele, Nigeria looks to me like a company that is in bankruptcy. If it was a company, it would be in receivership situation. Do you agree?
I'm not even sure Nigeria would have been allowed to go into receivership because it is essentially bankrupt. It would have been wound up once and for all.
Okay.
A company in receivership still has some measure of hope.
Okay.
Perhaps it has asset that outstrips its liabilities. and you can still restructure that company to save the shareholders' funds.
Mm-hmm.
But the situation with our country is that unless something radical is done, Nigeria is functionally a bankrupt company that has to be wound up once and for all. So the situation is more extreme than is even painting.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
There must be some kind of hope, because life without hope can be very meaningless, Dele. So I still ask, and permit me to ask, and maybe you would want to agree with me somewhat, because a lot of people listening out there are still looking for that opportunity. Where is that ray of hope, So still talking Nigeria, the dream is purpose in pictures, if you agree with me. A dream is a vision that goes beyond the generation, isn't it? So when then is the dream and the hope going to come? I mean, can there be life without hope? There must be hope somewhere. Do you believe that the whole situation is just meaningless and we should forget about it?
No. If I believed that, I would have packed my bags and baggages and probably used the Libya route, cross the Mediterranean to Lampedusa or whatever they call that place, and join the train to Europe.
Okay.
If I can't afford the airfare. But it is my belief that there is today a time bomb that is awaiting the Nigerian situation. And that is actually our population. We have a youthful population. That youthful population is largely exposed to ideas beyond the shores of Nigeria. And they are also aspirational. The Nigerian youth are essentially global citizens. So they can aspire to better than they are seeing right now. And they know that what they are seeing is not what it should be. I don't need to tell them, but they know. The demography says, when I look at our demography, what I am seeing is a situation where at some point in the not too distant future, the rulers would be incapable of perpetuating themselves in office because the system they have built is not sustainable. I believe that when we come to that point, if there are strong opinions and leadership on the table, Nigeria would come out of its mess because the youth population would break from the norm. However, it must be clear that you cannot keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Until such a time as when Nigerians are led with vision to walk away from the current trajectories and paths that the country is locked into, nothing will change. But that demographic time bomb that will not be contented with our current situation, that was what was driving the change mantra during the last electoral cycle. I don't want to get into arguments about who won or did not win. We all know who won and we all know what happened. People can keep denying the truth to themselves. But the question is, for how long will the will of the people be denied? So I believe that at some point in the not too distant future, Nigeria will be confronted with its nudity and it will then have to decide whether we are in love with the putrefaction that is clear to all of us, or whether we want to travel a different direction to save ourselves and our children, if not our children's children, because this generation behind us appears to be almost completely lost already. So we can be talking only in terms of children's children, but this old order is not sustainable. And those who are coming behind are more, and their mindset, as much as the system has sought to miseducate them to make them accepting of the lies, the global world in which they live make it impossible for that lie to be sustained. So I am hopeful that something will change and soon, but it would require a radical turnaround from the path that we are currently walking.
Okay, fantastic. I'm happy to hear that because there must be some hope. But I know you are not a soothsayer. I mean, you cannot claim like a lot of people do to see the future. But can you put a time frame? What do you feel? Do you think that turning point is around the corner? Is it 5 years? Is it 10? Or is it generational thing?
Let me put it this way. If somebody had told me that we wouldn't have come out of this last year, I might have been a little surprised. But what has happened is that in order for the system to sustain itself beyond this last year, what it has done is to have made a strategic error. It denuded itself. So the average Nigerian who is still capable of thought and is not limited by ethno-religious bigotry understands clearly where we stand in terms of our judicial system, in terms of our police, in terms of those we call religious leaders, in terms of those we considered leaders of thought. What has happened with the emergence of the current holder of the presidency in Nigeria is that a lot of people who had successfully hidden themselves and their characters have been forced to benude themselves in the public space. So their voices carry less credibility and their capacity for mischief in the future has been severely limited. So the clash of ideas are going to be naked in the future. So I believe that this system probably has only this current cycle before it would have to unfang itself completely and the inevitable confrontation would have to take place. So as far as I can see, we have only this decade. It will not extend beyond this decade.
Okay, I'm happy, and I agree with those prognosis because we can't continue going on. Because because there's also the issue of morale. In fact, I'm bewildered Nigerians find the morale, the strength to keep going on and on. So because how important is morale, and you know that in all of this, people just keep going on and on. So at some point, it will just filter away, isn't it? And we don't want it to get to that.
Well, I think when you speak to morale, I think we've already passed that point.
Okay.
It is something must be driving the escape of young Nigerians out of Nigeria. It is the complete scarcity of hope that is feeding that return to slavery in one form or the other. The Nigerian middle class has been running away from Nigeria for the last 9 years, steadily since 2015. It started gradually. Now it has gathered pace. The middle class is almost completely out. Those who can escape have escaped. It's not migrate, it's escape. They've left already. Those who cannot afford to live via conventional routes, they are going through Niger, Chad, Libya. They are braving the slave markets of North Africa. They are crossing the Mediterranean and becoming refugees in Greece, in Spain, and other parts of Europe. That is not suggestive of a place where people are still hopeful. That is them fleeing because choices have been closed off to them. But not everybody will run. Those who are able to run have already taken off. Those who have remained are the insane ones like me and you who have decided that we are not going anywhere. So we have engaged the insanity with insanity and we have remained here, as they will say in popular parlance. And if we report it, we're just continuing to survive. But at some point, those of us who have remained, those who have fled and have found no peace in their exile, will find common ground and come to the understanding of the fact that we have to save this country if we are not to become as vagabonds. The Igbos have a word, I believe they call it a fulefu. I think a fulefu more or less means a vagabond. A vagabond is somebody who does not have roots. And when used in that context, it's speaking to people without sociological or cultural roots. And that is what the Nigerian diaspora is running away from. They don't want to be homeless. They want to come back home. So at some point, those of us who are too crazy to leave, those who are too smart to stay, We will find common purpose and find a way to change our circumstances. But right now, there is a lot of scarcity of hope in Nigeria.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
It looks to me that we need to fix Nigeria, but we have to start with the man first. I don't know if you agree with me. We must fix the man first. It begins with you and me, individual citizens. We must be able to create some new realities. Do you agree with me?
That is inevitable. But it is only when you have a critical mass of victims who are intent on fixing themselves.
Yeah.
That is when you can actually shift the needle. There has to be a critical mass. It can't just be one person, two persons, even though one or two persons might be sufficient to spark or ignite the desire for change. But one person singing without a chorus can never equate a choir. Until there is a critical mass desirous of change, nothing is going to change.
Okay, fantastic. So I need to ask you as we are winding down, when is not advocacy, is not law, you're not talking about Nigeria and the whole myriad of predicaments surrounding Nigeria, how do you relax? What are those things that make you happy? What takes your attention away? How is your relationship with sports?
I watch football.
Okay.
Unfortunately or fortunately for me, Nigeria has conditioned me again. I'm an Arsenal supporter.
Okay.
So I'm used to snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Okay.
And that masochistic relationship with myself and Nigeria continues with my support for football as well.
Okay.
So I guess my country has prepared me for the football team I support.
Yeah.
That's my distraction.
Yeah, you have a lot of hope in there because the trend and trajectory shows a lot of positivity with your club.
If Nigeria will travel the same route as Arsenal is traveling in current times, perhaps I'll be a lot more at peace.
Yes, because the signs are good. So the creative industry, what's your take? You know, people say this is one industry that brings a lot of hope.
That industry is making a lot of money for persons, but there are very few people in that industry who are conscious of their role as socio-cultural activists, political activists. Fela Anikulapo Kuti lived his life for this country. Each and every one of the songs he recorded 40, 50 years ago, they remain relevant today because they are interlaced with truth. And truth is timeless. That is what makes Fela's song timeless. They would even go as far as to say Fela is a prophet. Although I would argue that he's not a prophet, he was just a truth teller who spoke truth to a society that has refused to change. So what he sang about 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 49 scarcity of transportation, water, each and every one of those songs, they remain evergreen because nothing has changed, because he was telling the truth and the society to whom he told the truth has refused to change. So when you look at today's artists and our creative industry, yes, you hear a lot of, at least these days we are looking more inward. Afrobeat has become a thing, and instead of our youth dancing to equivalent of Michael Jackson and the rest of them, they are listening more and more to our local artists who are singing in our native tongues. That is all well and good, but what is the social content of the music they are producing? What is the social content of the movies they are producing? What is the use of a movie that wrongly depicts our culture, our spiritualities, and our rituals? What is the point? What is the point of music that promotes nothing but violence or sexual immorality? You look at all the ills in our society. How many of our musicians are speaking truth to power? There are exceptions, and I must applaud those exceptions, especially amongst our skit makers. There's Bello Galadanchi, for instance. There is Macaroni. You have Basket Mouse.
For fun, you know.
They speak humorously, but they are speaking to the truth of our situation and they are educating the people. So one must applaud those ones. But generally, where is the sense in the song that is saying Wafe Joku ni Wafe Joku, and then you listen to a song going on and all the person is saying Wafe Joku ni. Where is the sense in that? Or they are singing and glorifying body parts, misogynistic music. So we are not where we were. but we are also not where we need to be.
We need to be.
We are far away from where we need to be.
Fantastic, Dele. We are winding down now. There are a lot of messages, but I can't take all of them. But the preponderance of them are saying that no, Dele must come back for a part 2 sometime before the year rounds up. I hope you oblige our teaming followers and public to that.
May God spare all of our lives.
Fantastic. So, as we round up, I know you've given me one Nigerian proverb. Do you have another? And then you take your music for the week.
Oh. Now, it has to be one that speaks to our situation.
Yes.
They behold us with pain and tears.
Yes.
And we behold ourselves with joy.
Fantastic.
Which is suggestive of our inability to speak the truth of our situations to ourselves. We say we are the giants of Africa, and yet we are little better than rats in Africa because of what we have done to ourselves. So I believe that the only message I can pass on to everyone who might be hearing me now or in the future is think beyond the moment. Think beyond your carnality. Think beyond the day. Stop being existential in your outlook. Consider the future. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want to be remembered for? What truth are you standing for? So that you stop falling for every lie. I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Before you give me your music for the week and we end up, I'd like to really wish you a fantastic week ahead. And in fact, come May 19th, what I really wish for you, Dele, is that your team lifts the trophy this year, because there are 3 things that you have in your team that is Arsenal. In terms of the way they played, you see intelligence there. In terms of style, there is contemporary. Then in terms of look and feel, he has classical elegance. So I wish you all that, and I hope that they win this year to make you really happy. I want you to remain happy and very useful to Nigeria. You are music for the week, Dele.
Oh, well, I'll be happy to hear Fela's Water.
Water. No get enemy.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dele. Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Yeah, have a great weekend ahead of you.
And you too, sir.
Yes, and you listeners, have a great week ahead of you. Bye.
And that's it on The Discourse with Dr. Ken.